oh, you know what, he popped my cherry this. I'm like, wait, am I actually listening to an 11-year-old talk about he popped my cherry? Well, you don't even know what that means. I feel like in our culture, there's so many things that have been introduced to our children that should not be, whether through commercials, whether through TV shows, and even in the shows that are like supposed to be for children, there are sexual contents that should not be, right? So you find that we're living a day and age where it doesn't matter how young the child is, they've already been exposed to so much sexual content that it perverts their mind, right? Because think about when you were a child, like you were curious about things. Children are curious creatures. And then if a child cannot get the reality or the real questions answered by their parents, they're going to go to other sources. And nowadays, it's so easy to find information anyways, because we're buying cell phones for our children at such a young age. So then you have this child that has a cell phone in their hands and they're able to even look it up. My 6-year-old will ask Siri questions. She'll say, Siri, can you show me this? Or Siri, can you answer this? And Siri answers, or Siri will take her to websites that will answer those questions for her. So it's very easy, because I mean, my kids have iPads, right? So it's very easy to lose track of the fact that we live in such a technological age that it's easier for kids to have access to information that they should not have, or information that's wrongly presented to them, right? So as a parent, it makes your job a lot harder to do. In the last video that I posted before this one, I answered the question of how to engage in sexual activity when children are involved, like how to get around that, right? But in this one, I want to touch on exposing your children to perversion, right? You want to have a conversation with your child, depending on how old the child is. When that child becomes curious, you want to answer that question. So whether that child, it shouldn't be dependent on age anymore. It should be dependent on when that child is curious. So there's kids that peak, or they're curious, not peak, but they're curious at a younger age. So my daughter is 6, but she'll ask a ton of questions. She's curious about how boyfriends and girlfriends and couples and husbands and wives and just these questions. And she's asking about periods and all these things. And I have to be realistic or honest with her. My child knows where babies come from because she witnessed a spontaneous birth. My son happened to be an at-home birth that was not planned, and my daughter witnessed the whole thing. So she's exposed to that already, and she had questions, so I have to answer those questions. So when your children have questions for you, you have to actually answer their questions, or they will find someone else to answer those questions. If you're not the influencer in your children's life, there will be someone that is influencing or shaping their reality for them. Okay, so exposing your children to perversion, this literally means if you don't answer their questions, they will find a different source. And a lot of the sources that we have nowadays perverts the information. So your children are not getting the right information at all. They're getting skewed views of what sex actually is. But you are in a position where God has given your children to be a guide over those children. Like, you're in that position for a reason. Your job is to make sure that you guide them the right way. So you should be telling your children the real thing. Like, there's no shame in sex. There's no reason why a child should be ashamed of their own body parts. There's no reason why they should feel intimidated or timid about their own body parts. You should express to them that, yes, this is something that God created in the confines of a union that God puts together. And it's solely based on that. Anything outside of a union that is a marriage-based union has issues, and you have to clearly define these issues for your children. For example, if you sleep with somebody that is not your husband, there are repercussions. You could get pregnant. You could get STDs and STIs. And there are some that are incurable nowadays that will eat you from the inside out. That's how I explain it to youth when I meet them. I'm not trying to scare them, but I want them to realize that there are things that you cannot expose yourself to. And if you do, you have to live with those things. AIDS is still very prevalent and real. We don't talk about it as much as we used to talk about it, but that's something that is a reality. If you have premarital sex, right, there are repercussions. Yes, are there times when people get away with having premarital sex where they feel like, I didn't get pregnant, I didn't get STDs or STIs, I'm not sure what these church folks keep talking about because nothing like that happened to me. But yet, you messed up. You're pretty much messed up. We have girls that are super clingy all because sex is a connecting thing. It is a soul tie. It is something that connects you to the other person. So you have people that didn't purpose out to be together, but had sexual encounters. And now they can't even figure out why. I can't let him go. I'm obsessed about him. And then when he doesn't want you, you become bitter. But you can't figure it out because you don't even know where it's coming from. You have guys that are possessive over girls like, no, you are mine. And like the girl's like, dude, how did I get myself in this situation? But because he already had sex with you, so he feels you belong to him. Okay? There's so many situations that are like, there's so many things that has to do with the sex topic that is such a broad thing. We need to explain these things to our younger children. We need to explain it to our youth. We need to explain it to the adolescents. It's not scaring them away from doing something. Like, if they choose to have sex, that child has chose to have sex. What do you do in that situation? Like, I'm not going to throw my child away just because they chose to do something or they made a mistake or something. But I have to let them know that for every action that you choose in this life, there is a repercussion. You have to live with the consequences of your actions. And adults don't even get it. So how are we supposed to train up children if adults don't understand that there are certain things that you just don't do, right? Not because of religion, not because of a philosophy, but just because there are spiritual elements that are in place, whether you choose, whether you're a Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're a New Ager, whether I don't care you're Buddhist, monk, whatever you are. There's spiritual realities that revolve around sexual activity that just are spiritual laws. That even if you're a Christian or you're a person who practices witchcraft, you understand that it's a sexual connection that needs to be done in certain confines. And that you are bound to that person, and that there's always an exchange when sexual activity takes place. These are things that we need to know because we need to be able to explain to our children. Because if it's not explained properly, then that child has a skewed view. If a child has been molested, it needs to be explained to that child that what happened to you was wrong in the first place, and that's not how it's supposed to be. That child needs to know you are not in a position to be ashamed of yourself because of somebody else's evil motives. These are things that we need to talk about with our children because it does shape their reality. Now you have adults that are in marriage. I've heard of a story of an adult that was in a marriage and he didn't want to have sex with his wife. Why? Because he was molested when he was a little boy. And he actually thought sex was dirty, so he was never going to do something like that. I don't know why he would get married with a mindset like that, but he never disclosed that information to her. So they're in the marriage and he's feeling some type of way, and they never consummated their marriage for like 7 years. This man did not want to consummate his marriage because he was molested as a child, and that was never addressed. So we need to address these things with our kids. You need to be observant of your children, what they watch. It's so funny because you could be watching like a YouTube video of like ABCs, an ABC video that is super, super innocent, like ABCDEFG, but the commercial before that is for perfume. And I'm not sure why commercials for perfumes are so hypersexual. And it's just like, you got someone like bods, abs this, and sex that, or whatever. We're using sex to sell so many things, but that's what our children are ingesting. So as a parent, you need to safeguard your children. You really need to watch what they're watching. You need to like really be on top of it. And if they ask you questions, sincerely answer those questions. And if you have biases, right? If you know that it wasn't explained to you and you don't know how to express it or explain it to them in ways that will not make them feel how you feel. So if you feel anything aside from liberation, okay? So say you're a married person and you're in a committed relationship where this person has made that commitment to be with you for life, right? And you don't feel completely liberated about the topic of sex, there is a problem. It means that somewhere along the line, you view sex in a certain way. You should feel completely, totally free to discuss the topic of sex as an adult. If you can't talk about sex freely with other adults, there's something wrong. It means that you feel ashamed somewhere, or because society has made it seem a certain way, we don't talk about it or whatever. Like, I feel like if you can't use sexual terminology like, oh, I have a vagina or he has a penis, you shouldn't be having sex. If you can't address it a certain way, you should not be engaging in sexual activity. It means you're immature. So if you notice that you have something like that and you cannot talk to your children about it, find somebody else that is in that position. I talk to youth all the time about sexual encounters. I've met 10-year-olds that are engaging in sexual activity, and people say, how is that possible? It is possible. It happens. I work with youth. I have seen 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds that have had countless partners. I'm not talking about people that have had one partner or two partners. They've had countless sexual partners where these kids are being exposed to several things. Mentally, they're like, oh, you know what? He popped my cherry this. I'm like, wait, am I actually listening to an 11-year-old talk about he popped my cherry? Well, you don't even know what that means. This video is just to say, you need to safeguard the ears of your children, all their gates, their eyes, their ears, their booty. You need to be checking your children. Like, let them know, have that conversation with them right away. If anything out of the ordinary happens to you, come talk to me right away. And when they talk to you about it, empower them. If something has happened that was derogatory and they feel shame, you have to remove that thing. Like, you really have to speak against that thing in their life. So how do you speak against it? If I'm feeling shame, I have to tell myself it had nothing to do with me. Something that I have learned or come to know is wrong, and I have to unlearn it. And by feeding myself the right information, I can get rid of that thing. Anyways, that's what I want to talk about in this video. Be honest with your children if they're curious about sex, because you are shaping their reality. If you're not doing it, somebody else will. And in this day and age, they might receive the wrong information that might shape them and mess them up for the future. So in order for you to be a guide in their lives like God wants you to be, because He's given you those children and positioned you to guide them, please do your job. Remove the shame from their lives and really set them free. Let them know that there are consequences to actions if they choose to do certain things, but let them know that it's such a liberating thing that God created for enjoyment in the right settings, or in the right time and place. Okay, there's a time and a place for it. Outside of that time and a place, there are repercussions to it. And even, anyways, but that's my little rant in this video. I hope it helps somebody out. Parents, don't be shy to talk to your children about sex if they're curious. Talk to them. If the child goes, ew, 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 then you've definitely scored some points in letting them know the real thing. Because some kids will say ew. Some kids are more curious than others. Some kids want to know and then they realize, I don't think I wanted to know. So thank you, Mom. So with that said, thank you. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, why do I clap though? If you're not subscribed to my channel already, please go ahead and do so. In my video, there is a picture at the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on it, you'll subscribe right away on that. Or you can just push the red button on the bottom. Please do like this video, share it with your friends, comment below. What is the weirdest thing that you were told as a child that affected you? Or what is something that you've heard other people say that you just know is not true? Or what are the ways that we can actually rear our children up and not have them feeling shame a certain way about sex, or feeling, liberating them and letting them know all the things that I just said. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I don't know. I just want you guys to interact with me. So anyways, I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next week's video. Bye, guys.